These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on SKOR North and SKORNorth.com.
I think our guys have played really hard, and now to me, it's just about across the board in all three phases, striving for what is that standard? What is that standard of execution? What is that standard? Knowing that we're going to play a lot of really good teams, and we've got to continually grow as a team, and you get a chance to do that coming out of your bye week and knowing you've got 11 opportunities ahead to really solidify what you are as a team. To me, 5-1 is a great start, but that means absolutely nothing each and every Sunday that we get opportunities to go play from here on out.
Kevin O'Connell here, kicking off this Reckless Speculation Thursday. Happy Reckless Speculation Thursday to all who celebrate. Mackey, Judd, executive producer Declan, and inside information about your favorite Minnesota sports teams. He is Darren Doogie Wolfson from 5 Eyewitness News and the Scoop Podcast. Doogie, what is your feeling about the 5-1 Minnesota? I kind of, that was cliche speak from Kevin O'Connell there, but if I'm the Vikings,
that was a lot of word salad right there, Phil. That was a lot of words with not much said.
But what he's saying, whether it's inadvertent or not, is true, in that this is not a 5-1 ironclad team that can just keep doing everything that they've been doing. There's some process things here that need to get fixed, or they won't keep winning at this rate. So I guess, what are your general thoughts on where they stand?
Well, I mean, I think it's a very, very favorable schedule moving forward. I thought it was a very favorable schedule preseason. So preseason, I thought 10 wins. At this point, I think 11, maybe even 12 wins. But yeah, there are warts. There certainly are, areas where they can improve. If looking ahead to next Tuesday's trade deadline, I still don't necessarily trust the secondary, although Cam Dantzler is playing the best football of his career. Patrick Peterson has been good, but I don't know long-term. When saying long-term, the rest of this year, if I fully trust those cornerbacks, right? So that's one area. Garrett Bradbury has been really, really good. I was looking at the pass block win rate, the run block win rate on ESPN the other day. He's number 7, in terms of centers. Number 7 in both areas. That means Garrett Bradbury, in a contract year, is playing very, very good football. But can he sustain that? So I still wonder about that. I still wonder about the aging Adam Thielen, Irv Smith Jr. Is there another serious pass threat besides Justin Jefferson when thinking about January, when thinking about the possibility of playing the Eagles again or the 49ers, or you name another team in the NFC that's really good, maybe Dallas? So there are still a bunch of question marks, but it's not like they need to apologize for being 5-1. And really, they should be 7-1 heading to Buffalo November 12th. They should win on Sunday, although I do think Arizona can be pesky. Then they absolutely should win at Washington.
So, Dukes, I'm going to give you 4 position groups, and I will be absolutely shocked if the Vikings don't make one deal before Tuesday for one of these 4. But you tell me which position group you think is most likely to be bolstered, all right? Wide receiver, cornerback, defensive tackle, defensive end. I think all 4 of those are in play as far as Kwesi's phone calls.
Yes, although I did check. I can tell you from somebody directly in the belly of the beast, Judd. Now, I get it. In division, in season, trades can be difficult, but the Vikings never once engaged Chicago on Robert Quinn. So when thinking about a pass rusher, knowing, they had intimate knowledge that Philadelphia had interest after losing Barnett in adding a pass rusher. So you could have pursued Quinn to block him from going to, say, the Philadelphia Eagles, but the Vikings were never once engaged with Chicago. They didn't even inquire via text. Nothing. Zero dialogue with the Bears on Quinn. But I suppose possible, but I would say the other 3 positions, absolutely. Whether it's a receiver or tight end, somebody that can stretch the field, whether it's down the middle or on the outside. Yes, on another corner, although I think corner's 3 on the list. But hey, you're casting a relatively wide net. So, maybe the deal ends up happening for a corner. But, if I had to rank 1, 2, 3, I don't know if I'd put interior defensive line or receiver / tight end 1, but those 2 would be 1, 2, then corner 3. But yeah, Judd, I'll reiterate what I said on Tuesday. You were out with resting your voice. It was just Declan and I. Phil, you weren't a part of the conversation on Tuesday, but I said on Tuesday, I would be surprised at this point, just based on the amount of dialogue they are having, if they don't complete at least one trade. Like at this point, like there's been enough activity in terms of dialogue. Like I just don't know how Kwesi doesn't do something by Tuesday afternoon.
I doubt if he's going to go full Rams, as he said to USA Today, something he is against. But, it's possible Kevin O'Connell's in his ear saying, maybe we could just go like, half Rams or something. Let's add something. Doogie, I love the idea, depending on what it would take, but if you didn't have to give up a first-round pick and you could get a rookie-scale contract, slightly underachieving receiver in a Jerry Jeudy, Judd floated that idea out a couple days ago. Chase Claypool's name continues to be out there. If you could, I don't love the 29-year-old, Brandon Cooks, big contract, DJ Moore, $25 million cap hit. I don't know how you make that work with a Jefferson extension coming up, Kirk's contract, but a rookie-scale contract for 2 more years for like a second or third round draft pick as a number 2 wide receiver, that interests me, and it wouldn't be something that mortgages your entire, cap situation too.
Sure. Now, I would be surprised if they end up giving up a second-round pick. I guess we can debate third, but I'm still thinking more day 3 compared to day 2. I have heard that there has been chatter with Pittsburgh. I don't sense anything is on the cusp, that it has been serious dialogue, but my understanding is they've at least made an inquiry about Claypool. My understanding is there's been dialogue with Denver, but I don't know the specifics there. So I'm not ready to say yes, they have specifically inquired about Jerry Jeudy, because you think about one of their tight ends who's available. You think about KJ Hamler. So there's myriad possibilities in play with the Broncos. But yeah, I'm thinking more day 3, Phil. Like even look at the Quinn trade. And I get it, he's not the same player he was last year. But Philly only gave up, a 4? So a day 3 pick with Chicago, ending up retaining most of the salary. Now, the follow-up on all this is the Vikings right now, per NFLPA records, are below $1 million in cap space. Well, whether you restructure Eric Kendricks, Brian O'Neill, there are a bunch of different possibilities. Put it this way. If Rob Brzezinski needs to create cap space, that is not any sort of hurdle to the Vikings making a trade.
So, Dukes, when you talk to folks who, as you say, are inside the belly of the beast at TCO, do you get a sense, or just have flat out been told, that this start and the success has changed things too? Because, I don't know. I think they had expectations, but I don't know their expectations were not only 5-1 at the bye, but just as importantly, when you look at the rest of the conference, Philly looks great. And beyond that, there's not one team that, if I'm the Vikings, I truly fear. So how much do you think there has been a change in thought process based upon what appears to be an available window that's probably more wide open than we all expected at one point?
It's more your latter point. Like if they were 3-3 or even 2-4, well, at 2-4, maybe you sell. But if they were 3-3, I don't know if I'd be sitting here saying I would be surprised if they don't do something. Mm-hmm. But certainly at 5-1, based on the landscape of the conference. You're right, Judd. I mean, heck, like the 2 seed is incredibly attainable. Now, I know there's not as much appeal being the 2 as, say 7, 8, 9, 10 years ago. But there is, like, that is sitting there, right? Like, you can be the 2 seed, right? Like, you absolutely can be the 2 seed. Getting to 1 might be difficult. I don't think Philadelphia's schedule is super difficult the rest of the year, but they are going to lose a game or 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, right? But they have the tiebreaker, so it's essentially a 2-game lead for Philadelphia. But go ahead. Go achieve the 2 seed. Put yourself in a position to win multiple games come January. So that's where we go back to. This team still has enough needs, so go do something. I'm not saying you need to make multiple trades, but Kwesi is aware of this. The rest of the front office is aware of this. There is a pretty good opportunity here to do something, to make a run into late January. So let's add to that roster.
Yeah. By the way, I am looking at the Eagles schedule just for fun here. you're going to lose some games, but you're probably going to lose. You play the Giants twice. Let's say you split those games. Those are tough division games. You get another game against the Cowboys. That'll be at Dallas. That'll be tough. Titans, Packers at home. Commanders at home. It's a pretty clear path to like 13 or 14 wins for them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, 13 or even 14 is probably more realistic than, say 12. But yeah, I mean, I was thinking the game at Dallas. I was thinking, yes, you split those Giants games. I even think Tennessee is a bit pesky. Like Pittsburgh this weekend, no. So you're right. I mean, Philadelphia is in clear control of being the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah. Man, this full Rams thing keeps sticking in my head because you guys are right. This is an open window for them this year more than maybe next year. But this year and next year, Aaron Rodgers might not be back with the Packers next year. Even if he is, he might just no longer be the guy that won a bunch of MVP awards. So your division's there for the taking this year and next year. Home playoff games based on winning your division are there for the taking this year and next year. I'm not saying you have to trade a bunch of future first-round picks, but this would be the window where if you believed in what you're doing and you believe there is a path to playing home playoff games, and maybe most importantly, you believe that Kirk Cousins can be the guy that gets you there. Because if you start trading first-round picks 2023-24, you're also trading slots that you could take Kirk Cousins' successor with. How much do you believe in what you're doing this year or next year, and how many chips do you want to take from future years and put on the table for this year, next year, is an interesting question I want to see them answer.
Well, I will tell you, on next year, the Chicago Bears at this point will have more cap space than any other team. Now, how Ryan Poles decides to use that cap space, whether Justin Fields is the quarterback, still a lot of questions there in Chicago. But the Bears are set up starting next year for a higher level of success. I still think Detroit, I love the Williams kid. I loved him at Alabama. I don't know if the wide receiver will play this year, but he is going to help them next year, the year after that. Like at some point, Detroit, with all that talent, they have a lot of talent in my mind.
I mean,
or enough talent.
It's been 50
they
plus years.
They are going to figure it out. I know. Like I'm not suggesting 13 wins, comfortably winning the NFC North. But at some point, Detroit is going to be better. But you're right. The window is wide open this year. Now, I don't have all their draft equity for 2023 directly in front of me. They gave up, was it a conditional 4th in the Rager trade?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing to keep in mind. I mean, Kwesi made 2 trades in August, right? For Blacklock, for Rager. We know how many trades he made draft weekend. Like, Kwesi is willing to make trades. But I am curious, do they have their 1, they have their 2, they have their 3, right? Mm-hmm. The 4th is a conditional, which I'm not quite sure at this point Rager reaches those conditions for it to actually convert into a 4, so maybe it's more like a 5 that ends up with Philly. But, Judd, you might know better than me, top of your head. But they have enough picks, right, to choose from for whatever deal they want to make by next Tuesday.
Yeah, and Blacklock was, a conditional 7th or something like that?
Yes.
That was nothing. So, yes, they definitely could. But, I mean, I think if you're talking a wide receiver that you could plug in here and could be a downfield threat, you probably have to trade your 3 is my guess. And that's where I'm curious to see, because to Phil's point, I got to think O'Connell, a year ago, having seen this work, will say, hey, Kwesi, we got a chance here. I'm not saying let's trade a ton of picks, but if we can trade the right pick for the right guy, because I do think the one thing, and I've gotten notes about this on Twitter, and I think there's confusion about how this show has talked about Thielen and his decline a bit. He is not a bad player. He is still a red zone threat.
That is another tentacle to all this, right?
I got a note last night.
Are you willing to disrupt his role?
That said, Thielen is always open. And I said, yes, he's open a lot. But the thing is, where? Is he downfield? And I think that's what O'Connell is saying is we need another threat by Jefferson to peel away the attention on Justin. And that's the difference. This is not to say that Thielen doesn't play a role or that he's in jeopardy of being let go. It is to say that his speed has 100% declined, and that's not up for debate.
Well, and he can play in the slot, right? Like we know Thielen can play in the slot. So if you want to bring in a Judy or a Claypool or a Brandon Cooks, right? Like all those pieces can coexist. And like at this point, we're not worrying about KJ Osborne's future. Plus, there is still a role for KJ Osborne, right? And I do think Thielen is open plenty, but you're right. It's the downfield presence. And that's why I think some of those names, specifically Claypool, I was told to certainly inquire about the Vikings speaking with Houston about Cooks. I get the reluctance, Phil, on the Cooks contract. Fully guaranteed 2023 at what, $18 million? The cap hit for this year is minimal. Like the cap hit for this year is nothing if you trade for him. But I get it. Like, do you want Brandon Cooks for that sort of money in 2023? But is there a way for Houston to retain some of that money? You know, how creative could the Vikings get in some of those talks? But that's the idea that, hey, we need somebody else who can stretch the field. So that's why I've heard that is certainly something that they've inquired about. But it could be, you know, is there a tight end out there that can stretch the field down the middle, right? That's why I'm not ruling out tight end.
The KJ Osborne thing, I guess my thought on this is maybe it's all sports fans, but we sometimes as Minnesota sports fans will see someone like an underdog rise up a little bit. And we'll want to put, oh, my God, look at this guy. I mean, we're kind of doing it with Jaylen Nowell maybe, too. We're like, oh, my God. Jaylen Nowell should just take over for D'Lo now. Like, well, let's pump the brakes. Jaylen Nowell's a really good sixth man. And I think with KJ Osborne, we saw him last year, and holy cow, look at this guy. Oh, game-winning touchdown reception over here, 700 yards for the season. Boy, if you gave that guy more opportunities, he could be a number 2 wide receiver that goes for 1,200 yards. And it's like, well, actually, maybe KJ Osborne's just a really good number 3 or number 4 on an elite team. And maybe Adam Thielen at age 32 has just kind of aged into a spot where he's going to be more of a third down red zone guy. If KJ Osborne or Adam Thielen were going to be a 1B to Justin Jefferson, I feel like we would have seen more of that by now in the first 6 games. You know, it's sort of a small sample size, but I have seen enough to say I don't want to get rid of those guys. Those guys are good as maybe number 3s, but they do need a solid number 2 or like an A- if they want to be on the level of some of the other offenses we see in the NFL. I mean, look at Miami, for God's sakes. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, like, you don't have a number 2 like Miami has, for instance.
Although my comeback to that is, like, for a 1-2 combo, would you take anybody over those 1-2 in Miami? Maybe you take 1 or 2, but point is, Hill and Waddle is about as good as it gets.
I know, but like that's another thing we do in Minnesota sports is like, well, we can't compare ourselves to the best of this. It's like, no, I mean, that's your goal. Your goal is to have an offense that's top 5 with all the weapons and whatnot. And right now,
but then how good are those guys, right? Like if Judy was that good, Denver's not listening on him. If Claypool was that good, and I get it, they have Pickens, they just paid Johnson.
Yeah.
But if Claypool was that good, why is Pittsburgh listening? Right? I get it, like new GM, he didn't draft Claypool. I understand all that, but I'm just saying if the guy was that good, Houston's a different animal, right? Because they seemingly have been rebuilding for many years. But
yeah,
like Pittsburgh, Denver, I get it, these years are our struggle, but like you would think, hey, we can be pretty darn good as soon as next year. So why would we trade Judy? Why would we trade Claypool?
But that's where I would say you might be right on Claypool and Judy, and that's where I would say, okay, then look at some of the splashes rookie receivers have made in recent years, Justin Jefferson being one of them. Then your first-round pick should be kept. Don't trade it. And I'm not saying they will in the next few days. And you should draft a wide receiver with your first-round pick. Like I was on that bandwagon last year, and I'm even more on that bandwagon this. I think what I'm saying generally is whether it's at this trade deadline or with assets that you have for next March, April, May, you clearly need another weapon to sit next to Justin Jefferson. However,
I'm cool
you
with
acquire
that.
it.
Now, I don't think you need to give up a 1 for any of these guys. Now, is there a name out there that hasn't been speculated? I mean, if there's ever a day, right, it's Reckless Speculation Thursday for us to toss out some name that hasn't been out there. Is there some name that I'm missing? Because no name comes instantly to mind. Like, to me, of the receivers, it's the names we've bandied about.
No, and
I don't think there is.
And I don't think that
DJ Moore,
Kwesi is going to give up a first-round pick.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
My
I'd be
guess is
shocked
you're
if
right.
Kwesi gave up a 1.
It's
I'd be
probably
shocked.
not a second. It's probably a third and back. I think
third is the highest, yeah.
I think Claypool is available because of the emergence of Pickens in Pittsburgh too. So like I do think he's out there. Like I do think he can be had.
Oh, he's definitely out there. I can promise you. He's out there.
Judy
I don't think Pittsburgh's giving him away, but if they can get a day 2 pick, I absolutely can see Claypool moved.
The price on Judy might be a little bit more, which might give the Vikings cause for pause on that one. But I trust that O'Connell knows what he's looking at, and I also think that there's a very good chance that O'Connell thought coming into camp, I've got Jefferson who's great, Thielen who's great, and the one thing he's learned is that Adam is not as quick as he once was, and I think part of the problem with going downfield now is teams can really put that shell on Jefferson, and there's nobody else really to threaten them.
That's exactly it. Now
that's gonna have to change.
Dare I wonder, is there more there with Reagor? Like
Not
the
deep.
speed is there.
I don't think
He's
so.
5'11".
Is there any way you can use him a little bit more?
I think
And
And I'm not
Underneath.
suggesting like
Underneath,
they
yeah.
should. I'm wondering. That's it.
Don't you think they would be if there was?
Yes, I do.
Like if this was Zimmer, I'd be like, he's screwing it up. He's a defensive guy. They're screwing it up. It's Kubiak. They're screwing it up. Until O'Connell proves that he's missing things, which to date I don't think he's done. I'm going to take what he does and say, you know what, I'm sure he's right about that.
Also, I'll add this, Doogie. So in his career, going back 2020, Jaylen Reagor's been throwing 24 deep passes of 20 yards in the air or more. He's caught 5. He's caught 5 of 24 deep targets. Now, do you want to split hairs and say, well, but Jalen Hurts' accuracy was much more questionable in 2020, 21, and like, okay, maybe they weren't the greatest deep balls. I think underneath, I think there's more there with Reagor. Claypool is 6'4", for instance, 235 pounds. Throw the ball and just let him go
with
up
a
and try to get it,
40-something
right?
inch vertical.
Right.
Like Chase Claypool is an athletic freak.
Yes.
I'm with you on Jaylen Reagor. Like, I don't know what they list him at, Phil, but like I'm next to him in the locker room every week. He makes himself available. I end up chatting with him just about every week. I don't know if he's taller than me.
He's like
5'10".
Yeah.
So yeah, him and I are about the same height. Like, but I'm not even sure he's 5'10". Maybe 5'9.5".
Doogie, stretch the field, damn it. Put on the purple and stretch the field.
Amazing. Duke, let's go through some rapid-fire scoops here presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been providing, much like a great offensive line for your quarterback, frontline protection and risk management for your business. Whether you're in the state of Minnesota or outside, you can go to federatedinsurance.com and find your local marketing rep and tap into over 100 years of expertise and knowledge. Also, real quick, so in early 2023, we do have some openings on SKOR North podcasts and social media, Mackie and Judd, Purple Daily, for advertisers. So if you want to partner with us and help get the word out about your business, shoot me an email, pmackey@skornorth.com. That's SKOR North.com if you want to shine a light on your business and partner up with us and get on board for Q1 of 2023. pmackey@skornorth.com. All right, what else do you have in your scoop bag here, dude? We mentioned Jaylen Nowell, by the way. I know Shams put out a note that there's been a little bit of buzz. But if I'm Jaylen Nowell, and I'm going to do this every single night, I am not signing anything for at least 4 more months. But let's start there.
Well, and he's not. I mean, he's been brilliant. Now, I would argue, like, maybe some fans are just now getting on the bandwagon. But, like, if you follow hoops, Jaylen Nowell was a stud for USA basketball as a 16-year-old. He was Pac-12 Player of the Year at Washington as a 19-year-old.
Yeah.
Now, we can wonder why he fell all the way to the 40s in the 2019 draft. How does Jarrett Culver go pick 6? Jaylen Nowell goes pick whatever it was, 42 or 43.
Jarrett Culver.
I guess the evaluators at that point thought he was a bit of a tweener. Like, is he a true shooting guard? Can he play point guard? He's only 6'3", but like his ability to score at all 3 levels has always been there. I've been more impressed with his defense through these 5 games, but Jaylen Nowell is legit. I'm not saying he's Tyler Hero or Jordan Poole, but look at the money Hero just got Look at the money Poole just got. You won't be able to sell me on Nowell being far behind those guys. I get it. Like right now, you would take Tyler Hero over Jaylen Nowell. Right now, you would take Jordan Poole over Jaylen Nowell. But I don't think Nowell is that far off. Those guys are about to make, $25 to $30 million a year? So the Wolves going back to June, you're right, Phil. It picked up national steam this week and some local steam because Shams put out a note on Monday. Truth be told, we've been on top of this going back to June. The Wolves offered Nowell 3 years, $9 million, 4 years, $13 million. There's been some more recent dialogue lately, but point is, at this point, he's going to take this thing all the way to unrestricted free agency next summer. There is no reason for him to sign any sort of extension, even if the Wolves doubled their offer. There's no reason for him to sign an extension. Well, but I love what I've seen from Jaylen Nowell.
I mean, what are the chances that he is still a Timberwolf next year?
Well, I mean, they can go over the cap. I mean, what you need to start thinking about is, okay, we know Anthony Edwards will sign a max extension. Jaden McDaniels, what does that extension look like? But you seemingly want to keep him long-term. Like, you can't keep all these guys, right? Even if Mark and Alex are willing, depending on what Alex's role is, but certainly Mark, even if they're willing to maybe dip into the luxury tax, like, I don't think they're going to go Golden State Warriors on the luxury tax, right? You don't do that until you're a championship-level team. Now, hey, if they make a deep run this year, maybe that changes the dynamic next year with Glenn having a say still, if they'd go into the luxury tax. But they only have so much flexibility. Yes, they can go over the cap, but they want to stay under that tax line. So, like, Phil, to me, you lose somebody, right? Like, it's hard for me to see keeping all of Russell, Nowell, and Reed. You can keep some of those guys.
Or do you? Or
not all those guys. Well,
Russell, I think he's probably gone.
Yeah, I mean, he's all over the place, right? He wasn't good last night. I think that goes back to, sure, Russell would have loved to have signed an extension by now, but, like, there really hasn't been any sort of movement on that front. My sense is Tim Connolly wanted to let this thing play out, right? And Russell is okay at this point letting it play out because he knows that Gobert is an asset for his game. But, like, I haven't sensed that Tim Connolly, put it this way, Tim Connolly doesn't have the same opinion of D'Angelo Russell as Gerson Rosas. How about that? I'm not saying Tim Connolly doesn't like Russell, but this isn't Gerson Rosas, right? If Rosas was still running the Wolves, Russell would have a big money extension by now. Connolly is not willing to pay Russell at this point the money that he is desiring. So they'll let this thing play out. And, hey, it's entirely possible, depending on how the year plays out, that Russell isn't here next year.
All right, I'm gonna save this for I have a whole something just hit me like a bolt of lightning that needs fleshing out in the second half of Mackie and Judd today. I was gonna bring it up here, Dukes. I want to flesh it out with these guys after you're gone, and then bring it back up with you later so you can do some insiding on it.
Got it. Okay, let me
throw it out there. Yeah. We'll get to it after Scoops.
You'll get to it. I have a feeling it's Russell related. Is it safe to say it's Russell? No, okay.
It is not. It is Jaylen Nowell and Jaden McDaniels and Karl Anthony Towns related.
Perfect. Okay, well, you'll get to that in a little bit. Let me just continue to empty out my figurative notebook. Saturday, Gophers, Rutgers, Huntington Bank Stadium, the Chicago Bears, and Green Bay Packers will have scouting representation. Earlier this week, Jack Robison, Lakeville North Jr., basketball player, committed to Wisconsin. Lakeville North has that Madison, it's a feeding frenzy. Nate Reavers, Tyler Wall, Nolan Winter, now Jack Robison. Well, it was listed that Robison had a Gophers offer. At one point, Ben Johnson, Dave Thorson were heavy in on Robison. Not so much the last couple months. So the way the Gophers are looking at it as the situation unfolds is for 24, likely only taking one high school player, then going heavier on a high school class in 25. But when looking at that class of 2024, likely only taking one high schooler. And that one high schooler was not going to be Jack Robison. But kid can play. I've heard good things, played for Pulley. Like, I've heard, he's got skill. Like, he's going to help Wisconsin. But my understanding is, we'll find out in a few years if the Gophers were right or wrong on their evaluation. But my understanding is they backed away from Robison the last few months.
Yeah. Good stuff, man. What a scoop session this was here. Unbelievable stuff. Doogie, you're just You're peaking at the right time of year here, Dukes. Just want to let you know that.
That's certainly open for debate. I'm catching up with our friend Kyle Gibson in about an hour. I'll tell him you say hi.
World Series.
He's going to get a ring, isn't he?
Presley's in the World Series. Gibby's
I hope
in the
so,
World
Phil, but I don't know.
Series.
That Astros team is really, really good. I hope so.
All right. Inside information about your favorite local sports teams. Darren Doogie Wolfson at DWolfson KSTP on Twitter. You can find him on the Scoop podcast as well. Thanks for coming in, Dukes. Appreciate you.
All right, boys. Have a great weekend. See ya.
All right. There he is. Man. Well, okay. Let's transition